Hello and welcome. I'm Walt Hampton with Career Strategies, Senior Coaching Consultant. With our webinar, Get the Job You Love, What You Need to Know Now, Effective Job Search Strategies in the New Economy. So pleased to be able to have you this afternoon join us for this exciting webinar. I'm so pleased to be able to share this platform today with my friend and colleague, Bruce Blackwell. Are you there, Bruce?
I am Walter, and I'm delighted to be sharing the platform with you too today. We've got a lot of very important and interesting things to talk about.
Well, we do, and uh, what I really want our listeners to know from what we share with them today is something incredibly important, something I learned many years ago, and I learned it from you. In fact, I am a um, success of career strategies. Some 25 years ago, Bruce, I met you for the first time, and I was an unhappy young associate. And you set me on a course that led me to a career and a life I love. I wake up every day excited and on fire about what I get to do in the world with my law degree. And it's not a traditional way to practice law at all. And it's so easy to get trapped in what I call the rabbit holes of law practice, where we see no clear way out. And yet I'm living proof, and the many clients that you and I have served over the years are living proof that we can be successful with our Doctor of Law degrees, with our law degrees in many different areas of our lives and many different careers. It just requires a little bit of innovative thinking, a little bit of courage and audacity, and the right support and mentoring along the way. And what Career Strategies, of course, has is a proven system. And what we'd like to share with you a little bit in this webinar is that proven system of exactly what you need to do to get to where you might want to be. And where you might want to be can be a lot of different places, can it, Bruce?
Yes, indeed. And in fact, in the many years since you and I first had our interaction, and you've gone off to have a terrific and adventurous career, we've worked with over 2,000 frustrated attorneys and recareered them into many different areas, some still within the legal profession, some that are hybrid business and legal positions, and some folks have completely abandoned the legal practice, but use their legal knowledge, their training, their analytical skills, and applied it in a completely different area. So we have quite a range of different career areas and different fields. We work with lawyers in my practice. You guys, as a group, are smarter than the average bear. You have the ability to learn new things, and I hear stories every day about partners throwing files on associates' desks that are totally out of their practice area, and yet you learn it, you get it done. And Walt, I also, and I think you can, although I've never asked you about it, can probably attest to this as well. The common wisdom is that if you leave a law firm, you're going to take a step back economically if you're going to reinvent your career. We have found in nearly a quarter of a century of working with lawyers and transitioning them that they will do as well or better economically outside of private practice than they were doing as law firm practitioners. So the idea that you're going to take an income cut to make a change, we've seen is totally fallacious.
Well, and I've seen it in my work over the years as well, Bruce. Um, there's some interesting studies done in psychology about what differentiates the run-of-the-mill from the truly successful. And there was a wonderful study done out at the University of Chicago that controlled for socioeconomic background and education and family background and race, religion, and creed and all of that. And they found that the one defining differentiator between the run-of-the-mill and the truly successful, and by truly successful I mean ringing the bell in every area of your career, is extraordinary drive related to extraordinary passion. And there are a lot of lawyers out in the universe, and you can make a nice income as a lawyer. But what's absolutely true, and you've said it in a different way, is that when you're doing the work you love to do in the world, you are unstoppable. And the money that you can make is absolutely as good, if not far, far better, when you're passionate about your work, using your JD in the work and the life that you love.
Well, the idea of being passionate, that is completely foreign to a lot of lawyers who can't imagine that they could be passionate about anything. They've been so focused on getting into law school, getting through the law school training, passing the bar, getting their career going, that they put blinders on. And part of what you need to do is to begin to look at the areas that you really do like, and not be so tunnel visioned. It's hard for some people to find, but that can certainly be overcome with the right kind of help.
Well, and that's the beautiful work that you've done in the world over the years, and it's absolutely true. There's another little factor to it that's problematic, is that we get sucked into the vortex of lawyering, and there's wonderful power and prestige and significance
Yes.
that comes from lawyering. And I've heard it from our clients, and you hear it from their clients. There's almost this trepidation and fear that if they leave lawyering in that traditional modality, that somehow they'll be looked at askance. I was talking with one of our clients just before this webinar today, and one of his great fears as he stands on the threshold of this great new adventure is that he's walking away from something. He's a partner at a big firm. He's walking away from something that was successful, but after all these years, it doesn't ring his bell anymore. And I assured him that with these proven steps that we have to share, anything is possible. And the slide we have up on the screen right now describes all these wonderful fields and possibilities where people have found a happy home using their JD to great effect, serving highly in the world and making tons of dough.
Yeah, I can give you an example of how this might work too. One of the fields is broadcasting. One of my favorite cases was a 48-year-old personal injury plaintiff side attorney who ended up as a vice president general manager for a TV station up where you live, Walt, in Connecticut, on the strength of his negotiation skills. The fellow told me he had negotiated thousands of settlements in his career as a lawyer. And I said, whoa, I've negotiated hundreds of business contracts in my corporate days. Thousands? The guy could negotiate anything. And he found a struggling UHF that had trouble with they needed to negotiate with the bankers. They needed to negotiate with their landlord, the program syndicators, and everybody else. And they took him in without any experience at all. I saw him 6 or 7 months later. He stopped by my office down in New York talking to some banking people. He had a copy of Variety under his arm, and he was a completely changed man. So there are many, many things that are possible out there.
Yeah, and it's really exciting because, one of the things that people get a little afraid of is, well, who am I if I'm not a lawyer anymore? And, of course, we have this wonderful tool belt that we have. We're always lawyers. We've got problem solving and advocacy and speaking skills and writing skills, and these skills are so powerful when put to use in work that we're passionate about. So I just want to talk for a minute, Bruce, about, I hate to be so bottom line here, but one of the things I did in my journey was become trained as a Tony Robbins results business coach. So I've got to always talk about outcomes.
Okay.
So I want to share the outcomes from this webinar. As I said at the outset, we've got a bunch of proven steps that Bruce, over a quarter of a century, many, many years, has demonstrated work in landing that perfect job. We want to share with you the one key to landing that perfect job. We want to share with you what doesn't work. There are lots of things that we think work because we're lawyers and we think we know what works, but there's lots of stuff that we know doesn't work, and we want to share with you some of that. And then we want to share with you in this webinar the exact steps that you need to take in order to land that perfect job. And I want to lead off by stating the problem that those of us who come to this threshold face. And Bruce, you may want to elaborate a little bit on this as well. But you know, when we go to law school, we spend a lot of time and a lot of money. We invest deeply in becoming a lawyer. We've got lots of responsibilities. I know I came out of law school in 1984 from Cornell with, you know, $50,000 in 1984 debt, and that was a lot of money. I had little kids. I had a mortgage, and I had a job that was taking me 60, 70, 80 hours a week. And you know, you don't have a whole lot of time to think about anything else other than keeping your head above water, meeting your responsibilities, doing your billing. And the thought of getting something else in the world, a new job, is daunting. And then there's this thing that, you know, we're successful. You know, people look at us, we're lawyers. That you're a lawyer, that's wonderful. You're successful. You make tons of money. You know, what else could you want in the world? But it's, you know, as you put this wonderful parenthetical in the slide set earlier, it's in the eyes of others. You know, if we're in this place where the traditional practice of law is not ringing our bell, it may be outward success, but it's not success in our hearts. And then we wake up miserable every day, day in and day out, not really feeling on fire about our life. And it's absolutely our birthright to wake up every day excited and on fire.
I agree, absolutely, and you know, part of the idea of being successful in the eyes of others is what I hear, and I hear it every day, quite literally, is my clients will say that they don't really feel that their work has meaning, that their work isn't fulfilling, that they're going through emotions and not producing things that they find are really valuable to them. So you have the trappings of success, but success comes in part from feeling valued by others and valued in what you're producing. Part of the problem, and again, these are things that I've been hearing every day for years and years, is that attorneys don't really know very much about what else is out there, and they don't know how to get started to look for something when they don't even know what that something is. So these are real problems. It creates inertia, lack of activity for some lawyers who just do the Henry David Thoreau's Lives of Quiet Desperation, and are really missing out on opportunities to feel fulfilled and find meaning and joy from their work.
Yes, and you know, it takes courage. You know, those of you who are on this call and on this webinar, I want to honor you for your courage of even opening the door to the possibility of something else. You know, I say to our clients, Bruce, that you know the percentage of people who actually leave from that place of quiet desperation is fairly low, and it's a beautiful thing to witness somebody who steps up with such courage and such audacity to even begin to explore. So luckily, we've got a solution. You know, the solution to all of those problems is to find work that you absolutely love, and that gives you the money that you need to sustain your lifestyle, to take care of your family, to take care of your responsibilities, and to have a great life. And as I said at the outset, I'm living proof that it's possible to have all of that. You know, I've got this life where I get to work around the world. I get to travel and adventure. I take 12 weeks of vacation off every year. I have a little home in Ireland where I get to live and work part of the year. I get to work with lawyers all over the planet and business folks. I get to have this relationship with this amazing man, Bruce Blackwell, at Career Strategies. And the beautiful thing is I'm using day in and day out this beautiful law degree that I got in Cornell some 30 years ago. And what I want each and every one of you to know is that the solution is out there. It's possible. Get the work and the life you love. So
where do we begin?
Yes, indeed. Where do you start? I really want to start with the one key, and there is one key. There is one secret. And it's, you know, whether I'm doing career coaching or success coaching or business coaching, it's the key to everything. And the key is, what is it do you really, 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 really want to do? You know, without disclosing names, I was working with one of our clients, Bruce, that you sent to me recently for coaching, and he shared with me, and this hasn't, I haven't even circled around with you on this yet, because he was even afraid to share with you the depth of his passion for music.
Oh, goodness.
The one key is to find out exactly what you really want to do, that perfect sweet spot. I say to people, you know, drop the constraints, at least for this question. Forget money, forget the responsibilities, forget the education, forget the JD. If you had a magic wand, what would it be that you would wake up every day excited and on fire to be able to do? What do you really, really, really want to do? You know, when you get into your car and you key up your GPS, you key in a destination, an address, and the GPS gets you to that destination because it gets you there within 30 feet. The technology is great, but you've keyed in a destination, a specific place that you want to go. And when you get really crystal clear on where you want to go, what you want that outcome to be, then everything is possible. You become unstoppable. So do you want to speak to what it is and how we go about, what the components are of what you really want to do, Bruce?
Sure, it's a difficult thing for many of you out there to really get your arms around what you want to do right now, but we'll talk about how you can solve that problem as we go through this presentation today. I do want to hit on one thing about music. I don't think in my 20-odd years of being a career counselor for lawyers I've ever recommended musician for anybody, but we have had a graduate, as I call them, who is now with the Metropolitan Opera doing planned giving work, using his background as an attorney. He wasn't a trust and estates attorney either, but using his background as an attorney to deal with donors on how to structure their gifts to the opera. We have another client that went, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, you know, I just wanted to jump in there because I shared with his client today, Bruce, a private coaching client that I have, an accountant who was miserable in his life. And he had one of those traditional practices where, you know, you work like a dog and all, you know, for the first 3 months, 4 months of the year, then collapse, and you're doing this soul-sucking work. He loved music. He was a guitarist. And now he's an accountant to the music industry.
Yeah, exactly.
He speaks at trade associations. He consults with high-end execs in the music industry, and he performs at some of these gigs, and he loves his life. So it's possible to put these pieces together.
It does take a little work, but the things that you need to consider, given your druthers, what type of job do you want? When I ask people that, when the first time I speak with them, they're usually law firm lawyers, and they usually say they want to go in-house. And I'll ask, is that what you really want to do, or is that what you think is the easiest transition? And they'll 99 times out of 100, they'll say, well, that's what I think is the best possible transition. I can get there from here. And then we'll talk about, what do you really want to do? And we begin to put that together. We talk about industries. Now, you've cited some cases, Walter, people that like the music industry. I learned after all these years of working with attorneys that they generally don't think about the industry. They think about the nature of the problem. So you can be a commercial litigator. You're not worried about what your client's company does. You're worried about the facts of the case and how you're going to present it. But we have to think, when you get up in the morning and get dressed, you're going to go to a job. What does the company do that you're working for? It could be in sports, it could be in entertainment, it could be in insurance, it could be anything, but it's your choice as to where you want to go. And also in developing what you really want to do, Work-life balance is a huge, huge consideration. I was a hard-working corporate guy. I was in the an executive in the movie business in New York, which means I was on the phone to the coast until 11 to 12 o'clock at night, long days. That's nothing compared to what lawyers put in. A long day for, a long week for me was 50, 55 hours. That's part-time for a lot of you. So what kind of work-life balance do you want to shoot for in this next career? A lot of considerations, and you can identify them.
Yeah, and then there is that sweet spot. We've got the slide up where those circles intersect, and that's the dream job. And that's when I'm coaching our clients, I'm always pushing people to that sweet spot, to that dream job, because I say, if you've taken the time and you've made the investment and you've had the audacity and the courage to come to the threshold here, why not make it right? Why not make it what you love to do? Why not make it what you wake up every day excited and looking forward to doing? Steve Jobs once said, for the past 33 years, I've looked into the mirror each day and asked myself this question: if today were the last day of my life, would I do what I'm about to do today? And if the answer were no for too many days in a row, I knew I needed to do something different. And that something different takes a lot of audacity and a lot of courage. And if you're going to take the jump, let's make it the right jump. So Bruce, I just want to pause. I'm seeing we got folks from all around the land on the webinar here, and I'm so happy to have anyone. I did not do a little housekeeping at the outset. We do have this chat window over on the right side of your screen, folks. If there are things that you feel are pressing, or maybe you have a burning desire to know, we will endeavor to respond to the questions live as we go into the webinar here. I'm watching on the dashboard for questions, and I'm also, if we don't get to your question by the end of the call, we'd be happy to respond by email to your question. So don't be bashful. If you've got questions, stick them in the chat window, and we'll get to them as we can.
Excellent. Okay.
So Bruce, let me move us on. We got a lot of content, and we just got this hour. So you get the assessment of the stuff you like to do, the type of job, the industries, the work-life balance. We get an idea of what that dream job is. Then, in order to get there, of course, you got to have a plan. And of course, the GPS that you program in your car, to continue that metaphor, it's got the destination in mind, but there's a route map. There's a way to get there. There's a detailed step-by-step that happens. And you've developed a wonderful proprietary system over the years to get folks there. And I would love if you'd start kind of talking about what it is that those steps start with, that plan starts with, Bruce.
Certainly. Okay, be happy to, Walt. The very first step is working with you to identify what's really possible and desirable and real. When we look at career alternatives, we have a number of different types of processes. It really depends on your specific situation, but that will identify where you can go realistically. Once we've got that destination, then it becomes a matter of orchestrating your marketing campaign. Of the two disciplines, today we're going to focus on the latter, the practical stuff about marketing. The more difficult is actually working with clients and finding out what is possible for them that meets their emotional and economic requirements. But once that's done, you need to get a resume together. The resume is it's an advertisement. Yeah.
Let me just jump back in because I think humility gets the best of you sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of what, by the time you have sent folks to me for coaching in terms of moving folks forward with their marketing plans, you've done a ton of work even before you get to the resume and cover letter stuff.
Yes.
And I know we don't have time to deep dive into that, but I do want folks to know that it's not just it's not just giving you a disc profile or a Myers-Briggs thing or the ordinary stuff. You've got a lot of proprietary assessments that you do with folks that really tease out these strings, that tease out these ideals. And I want our listeners to know that you really deep dive with folks to get to the heart of what that dream job really looks like.
Right, and we do, and I thank you for recognizing that, Walter. The easy things to do, and you can do them online. I call them number 2 lead pencil, or the standardized career instruments. They'll tell you what you might be suited for by personality or psychological makeup, but they really don't get down to what you can do with your skills, what your values are, and what's real in the marketplace. Our clients, whether they're young lawyers saddled with law school debt or middle-aged clients saddled with mortgages and college debt for their kids, can't go back to the beginning economically. They've got to preserve their income and lifestyle. They look around and say, I don't know what else is out there that I can do to feel good about and still make money. We have different ways of drilling down and coming up with the right answers. Some people it's fairly straightforward. Other people it requires a little bit more work, but we can get you there. We have a very real world process of identifying the possible, the desirable, and then the optimal.
Well, thank you very much. I did not want you to gloss over that. I'm sorry for interrupting. Please.
That's okay.
Please continue with resume and cover letter.
Once we've got the destination in mind, it's a question of showing the outside world why you should be considered for something you've never done before. I'll use as an example, is one of my favorite cases, a 40-odd-year-old real estate litigator who we transitioned into corporate communications, actually at IBM. She had no idea about getting into corporate communications, but she was a lawyer. She was a good writer. She was very analytical. She was a persuasive communicator. She got the story straight. She had all the right stuff. But when we took her to market, we couldn't use a litigator's resume. We had to develop a marketing brochure that showed what she could do for in a corporate communications role as opposed to what she has done in a law firm situation. So when we develop the resume, it's got to be very relevant. It has to present to the reader the things that the reader needs to see and to know about. It has to be targeted for the job you're going after. When I run live seminars, I'll ask people, what kind of job are you looking for? And they'll all shout out, what are you using? What are you using for your resume? And they're using their commercial litigator's resume, or they're using their trust and estates resume, which is completely off point for the job they're looking for. So you've got to look through your background, come up with the things that are on point, necessary skills to prove to the reader, that's the decision maker, that you're qualified to do something by virtue of skill, not experience. And also with resumes, I have seen literally, Walt, 60,000 and more in my time. Most of those talk about duties and responsibilities. And I would venture to our audience, if you guys and ladies look at your own resumes, it probably talks about what you do, memoranda of law, you attend depositions and hearings, etc., etc. We don't care about your duties and responsibilities. We care about results. We care about how did you solve problems. So it's not what you were paid to do, it's how well did you do it. How did you exercise those duties? And what's very, very important, and in some resumes we do see it, but mostly not, is give us some proof. You're going to make claims about your abilities, cite some actual achievements. If you say you're a good negotiator, cite some deals you negotiated. If you're good at whatever it might be, cite examples. Fill the resume with proof. You want to be able to break through that big screen, because out of 100 or 200 or 500 resumes that might be sent in, the company or the firm will interview perhaps 6 folks They want to interview the 6 that they're already kind of comfortable with, that they already think can do the job. You need to prove that. So your resume needs to be very, very, very focused on what it is that you're trying to sell.
And Bruce, I haven't seen 60,000 resumes, but as a hiring partner in a law firm, I've certainly seen hundreds of resumes,
Oh, yeah.
and I can attest to the fact that 90% of the decisions are made right on that resume and cover letter. They don't just jump out and grab you; they go right in the circular file. And I'll tell you, I have been so impressed with the resumes that you sent over to me with the candidates that I'm coaching. Those are resumes that really, really stand out. So it's key. I've seen it as a hiring partner. It's absolutely key that these materials ring the bell.
One of the things that I've learned about we've worked with every category of lawyer there is that basically if you're given your practice area and the number of years of experience that you might have, there are a lot of other people out there whose resumes would look pretty much the same as yours. Different firms, but same type of work, same type of skill sets involved. How do you differentiate yourself from everybody else with like kind and quality of experience? It's an art form as well as a bit of a science to really break through the clutter and establish your independent identity.
Well, you got it going on, dude, because the stuff you turn out is unbelievable. So I hate to push you onward, but we need to talk about what happens next.
Okay.
And that's about the marketing plan. And some of the work that we do together is taking those core competencies, that dream job, getting with that clarity of destination, and turning that into what the concrete steps are that one needs to take in order to land that dream job. So one of the primary documents that comes over to me as the coach and mentor pushing folks forward is this beautiful thing called a marketing plan. Bruce, can you talk a little bit about how that gets developed and what we do with it?
Right. What people will spend more time planning their vacations and researching hotels and restaurants than they do planning how they're going to build their career and how they're going to get their next job. We're like litigators, God forbid, but we're like litigators from the extent that it's preparation that counts more than anything else. If you prepare properly, if the facts are against you and the law is against you, but you're properly prepared, you might actually get a chance of breaking through. So we try to take this very seemingly overwhelming process and break it down into bite-sized pieces, little action steps. You need to look at who are you going to be sending a resume to? Are there industries of interest? We talked about music and museums before. Maybe that's a category. Who's most likely to be interested in hiring you? Lawyers will typically say, oh, well, I want to work for a large company because they're secure and stable. Well, baloney. Large companies are not the ones that are usually doing the hiring. It may be smaller, earlier stage companies. An issue of where? Where do you want to be? You're not locked into. Some people are more than able to relocate, and you can consider going other places. You want to get smart on the terminology in the industries. You want to look at the different decision makers that can possibly hire you. What most people do, if you're looking for a law job at a company like IBM, they're going to send it to the HR department at IBM. Well, the HR department's not going to hire you. So who is? And they might send it to the general counsel at IBM. Well, that person's probably not going to hire you either. You have to look at the different levels and who is the person to whom you're likely to be reporting, identify that person. It's just a little research, and get your materials out to them. But most important of all, you really need to know what you bring to the dance. Why should they hire you? You need what, in marketing parlance, it's called a value proposition. And if you can't come up with compelling reasons why they should hire you, guess what? They won't. Oh, we're flashing by here. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I wasn't sure whether you were talking about the brand and positioning yet and the clear plan. But I see it all the time in the career coaching I do with my private coaching clients, they don't have this plan that you develop with folks to get that clarity and that certainty and how to go about it. And even more than that, the plan for reaching the marketplace. And you know, that's what's often mysterious and intimidating for folks who are in the traditional practice of law as to how to actually target this stuff to where they want to go, who they target it to, how they target it, and this marketing plan is absolutely key to it.
You know, one of the things that I learned again early on is that people don't go to law school because they want to be salesmen and marketers. They go for different reasons. So the idea of marketing is completely foreign to many of them. But it all comes down to what I call the big three questions. And that's all anybody really cares about. It's, what are you going to be able to do for me? What are you going to be able to do to make my business run better, my headaches fewer, my acid indigestion less? What are you going to do for me? Why are you qualified to do it? And why you when I can go to somebody else who's got even better experience? You need good, compelling answers to those questions. If you don't have them, you lose. You also need a plan for how you're going to hit the marketplace. There are different marketing strategies. We had a case not long ago where we decided to go wide, and we literally sent over 2,000 resumes out for this fellow. He got a number of interviews and offers, and he's working now. That's going really, really wide. All he had to do was show up for the interviews and not trip over the furniture. We've had other cases where we'll go as small as 20 or even less, where there's a tiny cluster of companies that you're interested in, and you have to research them, do a really targeted campaign to those folks. So you need to have a strategy overall about how you're going to market.
That's beautiful. So from there, of course, we've got to have, let me move our slide here.
Okay. While you're moving the slide, I see that we had a comment from someone about being 58 and being overqualified. Well, I don't know if we want to address that now or later, but that's a very common issue that we deal with in our practice.
Yes, and I want to honor the fact that she sent that as a private chat, so we can get back to that. But let me say generically that age is no barrier. The world is replete with folks who have succeeded in new careers and exciting careers in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. So I'm not gonna, when I get back to you, I'm not gonna let that age thing jump in the way there. So in any event, Bruce, so those are the key elements of the marketing plan. Then there are some job search stuff. You know, a lot of people think, and you and I have had this conversation, that you call the legal recruiter, the headhunter, and you go on monster.com and maybe send out a few resumes, and that's what does it. That is the traditional way of thinking about it.
That's it.
Can you speak to the efficacy of that?
Yes, it's not very efficacious. These are the traditional job search may eventually produce results, but eventually is the key word. The idea is, let's get this done as quickly as possible. So we have what we call untraditional or more innovative techniques. The problem is that everybody knows about classifieds and recruiters and hitting up your friends for jobs, but they don't know anything else, and that's part of what you need to learn about.
Yeah, that's excellent. You know, you know, there's the old Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, and it's applicable here. You know, the traditional.
Yes. In fact, that's exactly right. If you go to the next slide, we'll show you about the 80-20.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay.
I stole your thunder once again.
No, that's quite all right. Everybody knows that classifieds on the internet are a numbers game. Companies get hundreds, sometimes many hundreds of resumes for a single posting. What they don't realize is that classifieds only represent about 5 to 10% of the jobs that are filled. It is the smallest slice of the pie. It's out there, everybody sees it, but it's a marginal utility. Recruiters are the most misunderstood players in the career management area. People think that recruiters find jobs for people. No, actually, in the recruiting field, we say that recruiters find people for jobs. Our share of market on the recruiting side is it's 5 to 10%. It used to be a little bit higher. Recruiters are fading fast because they're expensive. And in the legal side, and this is something that it's a rude awakening for many attorneys, there are two types of clients that are of appeal to recruiters. They are the top 10 or 15 law school graduate in the top 10 or 15% of his or her class, or number one or number two in a mid-tier firm, that have worked. Now get this, federal clerkships are becoming increasingly important, that have big firm experience, that are probably not less than 2 and no more than 6 years out. That's it. So if you're if you're more than 6 years out and you're not top of your class at Cornell or Stanford or Yale or Harvard or one of the big schools, you're not going to be on the recruiter's short list. Unless you have a lot of portable business, which young lawyers don't have, but older lawyers might. If you've got in our area 800,000, $1.5 million in portables, recruiters will love you. They'll be your best friends. But otherwise, forget it. And in networking, lawyers typically don't have very good networks, and if they did have good networks, they're of other lawyers, and other lawyers, if they knew of really good in-house jobs, would take them themselves. So those things don't work. So what does? Good question.
Yes, it is a good question, and I'm going to let you run with this as well. But you know what I love is the space, and we don't say it directly in these slides. But what I love, one of the things I love most about working with our clients is there are some situations where we're actually creating these jobs. You know,
oh yeah, yeah.
I'm working with one of our clients right now, Bruce, and you know who she is. You know, she's been a GC at a very successful company, and she wants to be, if you say maybe concierge or chief of staff to a CEO, and it's a position that doesn't necessarily have a label to it. It doesn't necessarily have a job description to it, and yet it's a very necessary function. It's a function a lawyer could fulfill brilliantly. She will fulfill it brilliantly. And it goes back to, this last line on this slide, becoming a creative problem solver. When we identify a problem, for example, that keeps a CEO up at night, and this woman can provide the solution for it, we got the perfect match.
That's right.
So part of the fun of this work, part of the creative piece of this work that we do for people is actually, not necessarily even looking at the classified ad descriptions, those traditional descriptions, but creating stuff that's brand new that serves in the highest and best way.
Well, one of the things that I believe makes our practice special is that we look at jobs from a business standpoint. We're business people. If things make sense from a business case, if you're going to cost me X dollars, but you're going to produce some multiple of that in value, I'll sit down and I'll listen to you, and by God, I might end up creating a job for you. So we're looking at things in a different way than the lawyers will look at them.
Yes, and that's really important to do. And coming back, I don't mean to hit this over the head too high. It comes back to that value proposition.
Absolutely, yes.
It always comes back to what do you have that's different from other folks? What is your unique selling proposition? There's always, as I said just a couple of minutes ago, there's always a problem that keeps somebody up at night. And the most brilliant products are the ones that solve those problems. There's the most perfect job candidate is the one that fills that gap. And each of us has unique skills. Each of us has gifts and talents that only we can bring to the world. And when we're able to identify what those are and what that gap is, it becomes an incredibly beautiful match.
Well, the problem with a lot of lawyers is they don't. There's some the other way too, but they don't necessarily see the value in what they do, and they don't think they have anything special. I'm not saying that our clients are the most brilliant attorneys out there. I think they're smart enough to know what they don't know, which in itself is a certain kind of brilliance. But we will find the edge. You don't have to, we're not looking for world-class achievements necessarily, but things you do every day to produce value. Our job as marketing people and as counselors is to ferret out the pieces that make you a little bit different from somebody else, and then we can market the bejeepers out of that.
Well, and I love that. I've got a buddy who is a teacher, and one Saturday morning I ran by his house, and he had his car up on jacks, and he had his engine out, and the parts all over the lawn. And I said, Dana, what in God's name are you doing there? He said, well, I can fix this. I can do it myself. And of course, lawyers are problem solvers, and we think we're smart, and we think that we can do it all ourselves. And yet we don't always, there's that old adage, the lawyer represents himself as a fool for a lawyer. We don't
And
always
a client.
we don't always bring these skills to the job search, to the job.
Oh, yeah.
So what we need to do then, of course, is to get smart on the job search. And there are lots of things that we shouldn't do. And Bruce, frankly, I'm looking at the dashboard and I'm balancing all of this, and I've lost my script as to whether you're supposed to handle this slide or not.
You were going to take the top. You take the top ones, and I'll take the bottom.
Okay. Thank you for reminding me that.
No problem.
What you shouldn't do is to chase vacancies online. That is a zero sum game. I have, as Bruce has, a number of dear friends who are in the recruiting business. Bruce stated it spot on. These recruiters are working with a very niche population. You may or may not fit that niche. If you fit that niche, we'll work with them, with you.
Sure.
If not, we've got these innovative strategies. The other thing is, just because you're a lawyer, just because you came out of a Cornell or Stanford or Quinnipiac or UConn or NYU doesn't mean the world is looking for you. We've got to actually come up with this targeted plan, this targeted strategy. Take it away there, Bruce.
All right, on the uniqueness, this is absolutely true. We had an American lawyer from Harvard who spoke Mandarin, and he thought he was very, very special. We've had 5 American lawyers from Harvard who spoke Mandarin. So even though you might think you're special, you're really not. That's not a real hook. We need something better than that. It's a different kind of value that we're going to look for. You want to lead with what you can do, not so much what you have done. If you base your campaigns on your experience, the only job you're going to be qualified for is the job you've got now. So you've got to broaden out a little bit. Don't rely on your friends too much. Friends mean well, but one of the things, and it's a painful lesson for those of you who are already on the market, you might realize this, you're not going to get the inside track from your friends. They're not going to be able to do the kinds of things you would hope they would be able to do. It's very disappointing. Don't do what everybody else does. Don't go that traditional triad of classifieds, recruiters, and old-fashioned networking and expect to come out on top. If you're doing what everybody else does, you're going to be in the middle of the pack. And, Walt, this is really your part on thinking this is easy. This is not easy. You want to talk a little bit about what it takes, because you've done it.
Well, I have done it, and anytime I'm coaching in any area, business or relationships or health or wellness or careers, the truth of the matter is that it's 20% tools and strategies and 80% mindset. And again, I got to honor all of these folks who have gathered on this webinar today, because the fact that you've even opened your mind to the possibility outside the traditional practice is just an amazingly beautiful thing. Um, Having the courage and the support of folks that you value to step into this space is important. Getting the right tools and the right plan and the right clarity is absolutely critical. Having the accountability and support of coaches and mentors along the way is incredibly crucial. And you know, the late great thought leader Jim Rohn said, you know, it's simple. The steps that we're going to share with you and summarize on the next slide are simple, but they're not easy. You know, it's simple to lay out these plans, but it's not always easy to follow through on them. And it takes a lot of support and a lot of encouragement to go the distance. But what I know, because I've seen so many of our clients with such joy, Bruce, I've seen so many of my colleagues who've gone through this process to have to emerge at the other side so joyful, so happy in their work. This process works.
Yeah, you can actually enjoy your job. And that's a foreign concept to a lot of. You can actually look forward to going in the morning and feel good about what you're doing, who you're doing it with, and why you're doing it. It is very, very possible.
It is the best feeling in the world to wake up every day excited about what you're about to do. So,
actually, I'll take your 80-20. I love what I do. There are certain days I just soon stay home, but mostly I really love what I do, and you can too.
Yep, it's good stuff. So I'm cognizant of the hour. We've had a lot of our folks staying right on through here. We have a special offering that we want to share with people in a minute, but we have summarized the process of what people need to do in 8 steps. Well, 7 steps plus a step. And maybe you could start with the first few steps, and we can summarize for folks exactly what they need to do in order to get the work they love.
Sure. Okay, I'll go through this quickly. It's find out what you're good at. Do a self-inventory. When you're analyzing a case, you're looking at all this data. Do the same thing with yourself. And look at what you've done. What results have you produced for people? That's what really counts. And then put it all together. Come up with a compelling, short statement, 30 seconds, why they should hire you. That's all based, of course, on determining what you really want to do next. Look at this as an opportunity to get it right this time. And that's totally up to you. You've got to get materials together that speak to the future, speak to the can-do, not the have-done. You need to figure out how you're going to run your campaign. Our clients are usually unhappily employed attorneys. They have jobs. They don't like the jobs that they've got them, and they're putting in their 2,300 hours. You've got to come up with a campaign strategy that allows you to look for a job while you still have your job. Be creative. Time and time again, lawyers will say, well, I'm a creative problem solver, and yet when it comes to their job search, they're going online. So you've got to do better than that. And of course, there's an 8th step.
Well, yeah. So let me get back to that. I got to get that slide back up because I was already looking ahead to the next exciting slide.
Okay. Oh, sorry. What do I do?
So no, each of these steps is absolutely critical. Having the personal marketing plans on point, developing the marketing plan, the campaign strategy, being the creative problem solver in your job search approach, not doing what everyone else does, as we've said before, because you know if you do the same thing everyone else does, you're going to get the same results as everyone else, and those results don't work. One of the things that kind of frustrates me, Bruce, about these types of webinars is just the amount of time that we have. You know, you and I do half-day-long workshops and day-long workshops. One of my outcomes, as I said at the outset, was to give people the taste of what these steps look like and what's possible with us at Career Strategies in terms of how to build that out. You know, a lot of times because it takes a lot of audacity and courage, people don't necessarily want to jump into the process and deep dive in it at the outset. They might want to explore a little bit more exactly what the process is. They may even want to try it on their own a little bit. And we've endeavored to give folks a lot of the individual steps, the what to do, and the how to do it is a much longer process. But you know, you and our colleague Doug Brown, who is a wonderful coach in his own right, used to work side by side with you, Bruce.
He was a client
now,
once too.
huh?
He was the client once too. He's another
a successful client.
Yes.
And Doug is about to be named. Well, I shouldn't. I shouldn't even say that, so I won't. But he is the interim director of the
interim director. Yes.
Connecticut Bar Association, and doing a brilliant job there. But you and he, and I've looked at this. You and he built out a 4-part, 2.5-hour workshop webinar that deep dives into the how to do stuff that we've been talking about, and it really gives people a lot of content on exactly all of the cool stuff that's possible in developing and building this out themselves. It's wonderful content. It's 2.5 hours. It's deep dive. It gives you direct contact, gives you information and resources. You have evergreen access to this stuff. It's kind of a no-brainer, $195 one-time payment. I've just popped up the information and the link on that. You know, it's something that's very worthwhile to grab if you're still in the exploratory phases of this whole process. You don't necessarily want to commit, but you might want to stick your toe in. It's great content developed by two brilliant minds, Bruce Blackwell and Doug Brown. And I would encourage you to grab this opportunity to explore further if it's a little bit too soon for you to get involved in the full process. So that information is there. You can get the information and the link that will take you right to the checkout card. But that's stuff that would be really worthwhile for you to explore. Do you want to say anything else about that webinar before I move on to the magic critical 8th step, Bruce?
Yes, if I can. When we put this webinar together, it was based on a presentation that I had given before the annual meeting of the New York State Bar Association a couple of years ago, and it was pretty well received. It was short. We decided to really expand it out, and we've gotten down to a very, very clearly defined how to do these things. Today, Walt and I were talking about what to do. That's the concept, but the how to do is very specific. So when we re-careered Doug from law into academics and academic administration, he became a developer of curriculum and really an expert in online learning. We've taken a lot of that and put together a very, very advanced course in job search for lawyers. So we're very proud of what we've been presented. It's as up-to-date as you can possibly imagine, and the idea is to give you power over your job search, so you're not stuck looking at the online classifieds and getting nothing back.
Yeah, and Bruce, I just want to make it clear before I jump on, and I am cognizant that we're getting to the end of the hour, that we're not doing this traditional webinar upsell thing. We're not saying to our listeners, you got to grab it now, grab it today, or you never have it. We're here to serve you. We're here to take you from where you are to where you want to be. This is a resource that we want to offer you because it's got a lot of great content to it. It's got a lot of the how-to that Bruce has developed over 30 years, and it's a great way to begin your exploration and to begin to unpack the power of all of these years that Bruce has brought to this process. So do take advantage of this offer. I do Want to honor everybody's time who's on the webinar, though, and move on to this magic 8th step, which is get off your butts and do it. Action. You know, I love the story. I'm going to tell the story quickly, but I have to tell the story because it's one of my very favorite stories. I'm an ultra distance runner, as you know, Bruce. I do ultra marathons, like 50 milers. One of my great fun stories is the story of Cliff Young. He was a 62-year-old potato farmer who showed up at the start of the Sydney to Melbourne ultra marathon, a 544-mile road race.
Oh my God!
He had never run a race in his life. He had never run a race before. They didn't want to let him in. Of course, all the risk managers, they wanted to keep him out. He's 62 years old. He's standing there in Wellington boots, gum boots, and a set of overalls, and he tells the race administrators that he's been a sheep farmer, and that's why he knows he can run this race. Well, to make the long story short, they finally relented. They finally let him join this ultra marathon, this 544-mile race, the race that draws elite runners from all around the world. Cliff starts out. 5.5 days later, Cliff crosses the finish line, #1, breaking the course record by 2 days and his closest competitor by 10 hours. He wins the 544-mile ultra marathon. And the reason that he won the marathon was he didn't know that he was supposed to stop. In these ultra marathons, it's typical that you stop, you rest, you eat. What Cliff did was he just kept on going. And that's the 8th step. It's getting off your butt, getting to the starting line, knowing what the finish line looks like, and just keep moving. And one of the great jobs that I have in the universe, Bruce, is working with you as the coach to support people, to hold them accountable, to keep them moving through their fear, through the inertia, through the a lack of certainty, holding the vision strong and keeping the momentum going. And I'll tell you, when you send me one of those emails that tells me that we've got somebody who's graduated, that they've got the job they love, we both celebrate.
It is. It's a great moments for us.
It is great moments. The key is to get off the butt and just keep on doing it. So we're over time, Bruce. You know, I love that old phrase. How do you, that old admonition? How do you get to Carnegie Hall? How do you get to your destination? It's practice, practice, practice. It's all this stuff that we've been talking about over the last hour. Getting clear on what our unique gifts and talents are, developing the marketing plan, building it out, and doing it in these non-traditional ways that move beyond those very narrow sectors that people think are the job hunting modalities, and getting them the job they love. And just to kind of recap what we bring to the table, which is so different from what most folks expect, is decades of work, thousands of hours, thousands of attorneys, going back. Bruce, it was 1980. God, I think it was 1989 when I first met you.
It was a long time back.
You've been doing this a long time, and you know, this is one of the biggest things that I have difficulty when I'm talking with potential coaching clients. You know, we all know that we invest in ourselves in our college educations. We invest in ourselves in our law school educations. For some reason, we get to a point in our lives and our careers when we forget that we need to invest in ourselves. And there's a cost not to invest in ourselves.
Yeah, if you're out of work, and if you're doing, the numbers are pretty clear. Every day that you're out of work doing the old-fashioned job search, you're losing money. It's a and it gets to be substantial because the job searches today can take an inordinately long time. But more importantly, if you are working and are miserable in what you're doing, you're wasting your time on this planet. It's not necessary. You can do things that you will really like. You can have a great career, not in somebody else's eyes, but in your own.
Amen. So if there were four things, I still haven't, I've really grappled with this slide you sent me several weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Five things. It's five things, but you say if you remember four things. I'm going to let you go with the four things. If you only take away four things from our webinar today, Bruce.
Don't rely on the classifieds. You're wasting your time. Don't rely on recruiters. They'll probably not call you back unless they're so bored they have nothing else to do, but they're not going to be of much help. The quality of your work as an attorney, your brilliance, all that doesn't matter for diddly. It's how smart you are about how to do the search. The best candidate is the one that necessarily wins. It's the candidate who best presents their skills who wins. You can do this. I'm a big believer in it. I've done it myself. Walter's done it. You get smart on how to do this, and you hold yourself accountable. It's getting off your butts. It's, but I'm too busy, but I'm too tired, but I've got to do this, but I've got to do that. Nobody's going to take charge of your career except you.
And you know what? Tomorrow is not promised to anyone, and we owe it to ourselves and to the people we love to start today, Bruce. So just a little bit about us before we send you off. We've got a newsletter that you can subscribe to.
Brand new newsletter coming out soon.
Good. Well, I'm going to push you and hold you accountable.
Yes, I know.
There's free resume and critique and consult. We've got other webinars that you can take advantage of. Lots of resources we have at Career Strategies. The resource that I really want you to consider tonight, because I know it's got such great content on the how-to, is this Innovative Job Search Strategies, your complete guide, the deep dive on the stuff we've been talking about tonight. It's a great value. It's probably less than half your hourly rate. It's $1.95. Grab that because it'll allow you to really begin to explore what we've been talking about. And we want you to know, there's been a bunch of questions, Bruce, that have popped up in the window. We haven't had time to address them. I'll take some time to sort that out and email with people, and certainly we can make ourselves available. This is our contact information on the screen. Bruce and I, we do this work because we love it, because we wake up every day excited about serving you. So anytime you want to circle around and get in touch with us, please feel free to do so. So grateful. So many of you stayed through all of the webinar tonight.
Thank you.
It's been awesome to have you. It's been awesome to share this time with you. Bruce, why don't you sign us off?
Okay, it's been, as Walter said, it's been terrific. We hope that you have picked up some valuable information from this, and we hope this is the beginning of a dialogue. Whether it is or isn't, we wish you well, and we're glad to have you here today.
Start today, folks, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.